Hallo Freunde, I am Jürgen Habermas, a German philosopher and sociologist who has spent a lifetime trying to understand how we, as human beings, can live together more freely, more justly, and more truthfully. I believe that democracy is not just a set of institutions. It's an ongoing conversation, a constant exchange of ideas, reasons, and critiques. My work has been about defending that conversation against the forces that distort it: authoritarianism, unchecked capitalism, and the erosion of the public sphere. If you've ever wondered why public debate sometimes feels shallow, or why truth and reason seem under threat in politics and media, then you've already stepped into my world. Welcome to Socio-Exploration. Let's explore how communication itself can be a foundation for a better society. I was born on June 18, 1929 in Düsseldorf, Germany, and grew up during the turbulent years of the Nazi regime and the devastation of World War II. The political collapse and moral failures of that period deeply influenced my thinking about democracy, truth, and the responsibilities of citizens. I studied philosophy, history, psychology, German literature, and economics at universities in Göttingen, Zurich, and Bonn. My doctoral work, 1954, focused on Schelling's philosophy, but my intellectual journey soon moved toward questions of society, modernity, and communication. A turning point came in the 1950s when I joined the Frankfurt School under Max Horkheimer and Theodor Adorno, but I often challenged their pessimism, insisting that reason and enlightenment could still be rescued through democratic dialogue. I married Ute Wesselhoft in 1955, and together we shared the early years of my academic journey, balancing the demands of scholarship with the responsibilities of family life. Later in 1971, I married Reinhild Becker, with whom I built a lasting partnership marked by mutual respect and intellectual companionship. Raising a family alongside my academic career has been both a challenge and a blessing, reminding me constantly that love, patience, and understanding are not abstract ideals, but lived daily practices. My home life has always served as a grounding force, offering stability amid the often turbulent world of research, teaching, and public debate. The rhythms of family, conversations at the dinner table, moments of disagreement and reconciliation, the joys and anxieties of parenting have mirrored many of the themes I explored in my scholarly work. In truth, the lessons of communication, compromise, and empathy within the family have been as influential to my thinking as any seminar or publication. For me, marriage and family life have never been separate from my intellectual pursuits. Rather, they have been interwoven, shaping my perspectives on society, community, and the enduring search for understanding between individuals. My career took me from the Institute for Social Research in Frankfurt to professorships in Heidelberg and Frankfurt, and later to the directorship of the Max Planck Institute for the Study of the Rule of Law in Starnberg. Throughout, I engaged with philosophy, sociology, political science, and law, always seeking to bridge theory and practice. I defended democracy in public debates, critiqued unregulated markets, warned against media concentration, and argued for a cosmopolitan world order. Even in my later years, I remained an active public intellectual, writing essays, giving interviews, and speaking out on issues from the European Union to climate change. Over the course of my career, I developed a set of interrelated theories that sought to explain the conditions for democracy, justice, and human freedom in the modern world. Each of these ideas builds upon the others, moving from the historical emergence of public debate to the moral foundations of communication, to the democratic practices that sustain political life in both national and global contexts. Together they form a vision of society in which dialogue, participation, and mutual understanding are not only ideals but practical foundations for a more just and cooperative world. Theory 1, Public Sphere Theory. In The Structural Transformation of the Public Sphere, 1962, I examined how the 18th century bourgeois public sphere emerged in spaces such as coffee houses, salons, and newspapers. These venues provided citizens with opportunities to engage in rational, critical debate about matters of common concern, free from direct state interference. I argued that this sphere was not merely a cultural phenomenon, but a cornerstone of modern democracy, enabling public opinion to influence political authority. However, I also traced how this democratic potential has been eroded over time. The commercialization of media, the dominance of advertising and entertainment, and the concentration of mass communication industries risk transforming the public sphere into an arena of passive consumption rather than active debate. In such conditions, citizens become audiences rather than participants, and democracy itself is weakened. The theory of the public sphere remains one of my most widely discussed contributions, offering both a historical account of democratic discourse and a normative framework for assessing contemporary challenges, whether media monopolies, digital communication platforms, or the decline of informed public debate. Theory 2, Communicative Action. My magnum opus, The Theory of Communicative Action, 1981, advances the idea that human communication is more than the exchange of information. It is the very basis of social coordination and mutual understanding. I distinguish between instrumental action, guided by self-interest and strategic calculation, and communicative action, where individuals seek genuine understanding through dialogue. Communicative action arises when participants interact with a commitment to reason, sincerity, and mutual respect, free from coercion or manipulation. In such dialogue, the validity of claims, whether about truth, rightness, or authenticity, can be tested openly, allowing consensus to emerge. This is not a naive belief in harmony, but a normative claim that the possibility of reaching understanding is embedded in language itself. I argued that this communicative rationality forms the moral foundation of a just society, providing an alternative to the dominance of markets and bureaucracies that often reduce human relations to power or efficiency. By grounding social life in dialogue, I sought to show how democracy, law, and institutions can be legitimized not by force, but by the force of the better argument. Theory 3, Discourse Ethics. Building on the principles of communicative action, I developed discourse ethics as a moral theory that grounds ethical validity in the practice of dialogue itself. The central idea is that moral norms are only legitimate if they could receive the free and reasoned agreement of all those affected by them. In other words, no moral claim can be justified by authority, tradition, or power alone. It must be justifiable to everyone under conditions of equality and fairness. This approach shifts morality away from fixed dogmas or subjective preferences and anchors it in the procedures of open dialogue. In a truly inclusive discourse, each person has an equal chance to raise concerns, challenge assumptions, and offer arguments. The norms that withstand this process are not just imposed, they are co-created through shared reasoning. Discourse ethics, therefore, represents an interconnection between morality and democracy. It suggests that ethical life cannot be separated from participatory practices of communication, and that justice itself depends on the capacity of people to deliberate together as equals. Theory 4, Deliberative democracy, extending the principles of communicative action and discourse ethics into the political sphere. I advance the model of deliberative democracy. At its core lies the conviction that democracy is not merely about voting or aggregating preferences, but about citizens actively participating in rational debates about policies and laws. Decisions gain legitimacy not simply through majority rule, but through the quality of the deliberation that precedes them. In a deliberative system, political power is held accountable by processes that are transparent, inclusive, and open to reasoned argument. Citizens, civil society, and institutions are all participants in this network of communication. Such a vision stands in contrast to both authoritarian control, where decisions are imposed without debate, and the market-driven reduction of politics, where money and media shape outcomes more than genuine public reasoning. Deliberative democracy thus provides a normative standard for evaluating real-world politics. The closer our institutions come to embodying inclusive, reason-guided discourse, the more legitimate and just they become. In this sense, democracy is not a finished state, but an ongoing project, renewed whenever citizens come together to deliberate as equals about their shared future. Theory 5, Post-National Constellation. In the late 20th and early 21st centuries, I turned my attention to the challenges of globalization and their implications for democracy. In works such as the Post-National Constellation, 1998, I argued that the traditional model of democracy, rooted in the sovereignty of the nation-state, is no longer sufficient to address the realities of an interconnected world. Issues such as climate change, financial crises, migration, and technological transformation transcend borders and demand coordinated global responses. I propose that both democracy and human rights must be extended beyond national boundaries, calling for the development of international and transnational institutions that are both effective and democratically legitimate. Such institutions must safeguard individual freedoms and human dignity, while also recognizing and respecting the pluralism of cultures and identities that shape our world. This vision of a cosmopolitan order does not erase national communities, but seeks to embed them within a broader framework of cooperation, solidarity, and responsibility. By rethinking sovereignty in post-national terms, I sought to show how humanity can confront global challenges without sacrificing the democratic ideals of participation, equality, and justice. My publications reflect a lifelong effort to connect philosophy with the pressing issues of society, politics, and culture. From early works on German idealism to major contributions such as the structural transformation of the public sphere, the theory of communicative action, and the post-national constellation, my writings have sought to illuminate the challenges of modernity while offering pathways for democratic renewal. These books and essays, translated into many languages, continue to shape debates in philosophy, sociology, political theory, media studies, and law, influencing both scholarly research and public life. 1. The Structural Transformation of the Public Sphere, 1962. In this groundbreaking study, Habermas traces the historical development of the public sphere in Europe, especially in the 18th and 19th centuries, where coffee houses, salons, and print culture enabled citizens to engage in rational critical debate about public matters. He shows how this sphere of free discussion was crucial for the rise of democracy, but argues that in the modern age it has been undermined by mass media, commercialization, and state intervention, which transforms citizens from active participants into passive consumers of information. 2. Knowledge and Human Interests, 1968. This book explores the idea that knowledge is never neutral, but always shaped by human interests. Habermas identifies three fundamental types of knowledge interests: technical, oriented toward control of nature, as in science; practical, oriented toward control of social relations, as in politics; and emancipatory, oriented toward the liberation of individuals and groups from oppressive social structures, as in social movements toward mutual understanding, as in history and hermeneutics; and emancipatory, oriented toward human freedom and critical reflection, as in psychoanalysis and critical theory. He argues that recognizing these interests is key to understanding the relationship between knowledge, science, and society. Third legitimation crisis, 1973. Here, Habermas analyzes the problems faced by modern capitalist states when they lose their ability to justify authority and maintain legitimacy. He argues that in advanced societies, states must intervene in the economy and welfare, but this creates contradictions. Economic demands, social expectations, and political responsibilities collide. When governments can no longer provide adequate solutions or rational justifications, they face a legitimation crisis which threatens both political stability and democratic trust. 4. The Theory of Communicative Action, 1981. This two-volume magnum opus presents Habermas's central theory of communicative rationality, where human beings coordinate actions and reach understanding through reasoned dialogue rather than coercion or strategic manipulation. He contrasts this with the dominance of system, bureaucracy, and markets that colonizes life world, everyday social interactions. Habermas proposes that communicative action provides the basis for social integration, critique of modernity, and a path to more democratic and rational societies. 5. Between Facts and Norms, 1992. In this influential work of legal and political theory, Habermas argues that modern democracy must be understood as a system in which law mediates between the facts of social reality and the norms of democratic ideals. He emphasizes the role of public deliberation and discourse in legitimizing laws, suggesting that democratic legitimacy arises not from tradition or power, but from rational, inclusive communication among citizens. This book bridges his theory of communicative action with practical constitutional and democratic questions. I remain a voice for critical democratic modernity, arguing that reason, if embedded in open communication, can still guide human progress. My ideas have shaped political theory, law, education, media studies, and global governance debates. I am one of the last great figures of the Frankfurt School tradition, but I have reshaped it into a more hopeful democratic vision. If you found this meaningful, don't forget to subscribe to Socio-Exploration, click the bell icon for updates, and share your thoughts in the comments, and share this with others who may benefit from it. Danke und einen schönen Tag.